Hello and welcome to the San Antonio Baptist Association Urban Missionary Training Center. In this video, we are looking at 4 approaches to people group thinking. The approach that we'll be looking at today is Socio peoples and preliminary evangelism. This is the 3rd in a series of 4 videos over this topic. The information I'll be presenting comes from an article written quite some time ago, The Finishing the Task, the Unreached Peoples Challenge. 3rd approach to people group thinking, Socio peoples and preliminary evangelism. A Socio people is a relatively small association of peers who have an affinity for one another based upon a shared interest, activity, or occupation. Sometimes this might be the most easy to identify as far as people groups. This is a peer of people who have a shared interest, or they do an activity together, maybe a bowling night in a bowling league, or they may have a sports team, or they may have other things that they share together. Socio people group. An ethno-linguistic people group is a group that is identified or unified by both ethnicity and language. A socio people group is a group identified by social layers of society. And I want to give you some examples of that. Examples of socio people are groups identified by social layers of society, such as taxi drivers, construction workers, waiters or waitresses, lawyers, medical workers, and the list could go on. That's a socio people group strategy. Finding a group of people who have a common interest or a common connection and using that as bridges to share the gospel. This approach can be quite successful in starting Bible studies and other groups among taxi drivers, college students who live in dorms, or other pockets of people in a social layer. Some biblical examples. In Acts chapter 16, we find Lydia, women on the riverside. Lydia was a businesswoman. Women on the riverside selling and washing and doing other things. We find Lydia, and Paul goes and communicates the gospel with Lydia. In Acts chapter 16, we see the jailer, who is someone at a certain social level in the society. He is a jailer with which he locks Paul and Silas up, hears them through the night singing and praying and praising God. And you remember the story, the earthquake that happens, and Paul gets to witness to him, and he and all his family become believers. Another biblical example is Acts chapter 10, Cornelius. He was a centurion in what was known the Italian regiment. That's a certain level of society based upon an occupation or an interest, but he was a Roman centurion. That gave him a certain level of status in society, and his peers would be a socio people group. Another example is the Praetorian Guard. You remember Paul talks about being imprisoned, and even the Praetorian Guard and all through Caesar's household got to hear the gospel and knew that Paul was there because of his imprisonment. And he mentions in Philippians chapter 1, verse 13, he mentions the Praetorian Guard. Research is an important part of the work of missions. It's very important for us to do the proper research in order to identify socio people groups with which we can start Bible studies and begin to communicate. It's an oikos in the sense of relationships and relationships of influence. What socio people groups can you identify where you live? There are many around where you are. Which ones can you identify that your church could reach out to? How might you engage them with the gospel? If you would like help answering those questions, please let us know. We would love to help you identify socio people groups in your area. Our association exists for the purpose of connecting, encouraging, and supporting churches for kingdom impact. Thank you for watching this video.